Today we're going to be learning Beitzah daf chet. This is the daf for the second day of Rosh Hashanah. Okay, we ended with this quote from the Mishnah about Beit Hillel. The Beit Hillel agrees our topic is covering the blood from an animal that's slaughtered, from either an undomesticated animal or a bird. And we had said that modim she'im shachat she'chpor b'deker b'yachaseh, that if you already slaughtered it, Beit Hillel agrees that you can then cover the blood. To which Rabbi Zreka said in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, there's a few conditions, right? Who shares so deker noutz mibod yom? It has to be already dug into the ground. That way you're not over on the malacha of digging. It's already kind of dug in because the shovel is already in the ground and it already kind of picked up the dirt. V'haka avid kitisha. But what about the fact that you have to break up clumps of dirt? Right? Rashi even says that in order to cover the blood, you actually have to break up pieces into smaller pieces to be able to cover it. Not everybody agrees with that you have to, but you might come to, it's more likely that you will. So Amar Rav Chia bar Ashi Amarav ba'afar tichoach. It must be soft dirt where it's already not in clumps. V'haka aviguma, but you're digging a hole. You're basically making a hole. You've created a hole. That in itself is a problem. It's a malacha. Rashi says chayav mishum binyan. You're chayav because you built something. You dug a hole. Kid Rabbi Abba, the Amar Rabbi Abba. Remember, this is Rabbi Abba. We're going to come back to him later today. There's a few different explanations as to why this is. If you dig a hole on Shabbat and you only need the dirt, you're exempt. Some people say it's because it's what we call a malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. You don't need it for the reason that the malacha was to dig. Here, you just need the dirt. You're not looking for the hole. So because of that, it's okay. That would only make it patur, meaning patur valasul, which we learned in Shabbat. It would make it exempt, but you still would be forbidden. It's still a Rabbanit. So there has to be something else combined with it. Well, they say you're makalkel. You're actually ruining the dirt because you're kind of picking it up, right? You're not. Rashi says since you don't. The truth is, some people Rashi really doesn't explain it's malacha she'ein tzricha legufa. He says since you only need the dirt and not the hole, you're not actually building. You're actually destroying. And as you're destroying the ground, basically, by breaking it up and making a big hole there, it's a destructive act. And then according to Rashi, you'd say, kol ha'makakelim pturim, again, it's only patur. So you'd have to combine that with something else. So either you take malacha she'ein tzricha legufa and you combine it with something, or you take this issue that's makalkel, and what can you combine it with? Well, we already said it's afar tichoach. That means that your hole is actually going to not really be, it's like building a sandcastle. 5 minutes later, it's going to be destroyed, right? It's going to easily get filled in again because it's so soft. So likewise here, it will be very soft because it's soft dirt. It actually is going to fall apart. And then also it's not permanent in any way, shape, or form. And therefore, possibly that's the reason why. So there's some combination of two factors. What two factors they might be, it's debatable. That already makes it permitted. She'efer kira muchanhu. What is this she'efer kira muchanhu? Efer kira, remember we had the slide in the Mishnah, it didn't really make sense. Where does this come from and what's it talking about? Which is exactly what the Gemara says. She'efer kira mandachar shemei. What, all of a sudden, where were we talking about the ashes from a fire pit that you made in your oven? So amaraba hachi kamar. This is what it means. Ve'efer kira muchanhu. And in addition, if you have ashes from your oven, you can use those on Yom Tov. It's not muktzah. So there's a few questions asked. First of all, Beit Shammai holds that you actually can't use ashes for covering the blood. You have to use earth, not ashes, afar with an ayin, not afer. So because the Torah says, kisau be'afal. So either you say this doesn't hold like Beit Shammai. Anyway, we were discussing Beit Hillel, that they would agree that afer is mukhan. Or you could say it's Beit Shammai, and actually it's talking about just muktzah in general, and it's not really talking about for the purposes of covering blood. It's a little bit difficult to say that. Again, this line anyway is a little bit tricky either which way you read it, because even she'efer muchan, who really doesn't connect, and to say ve'efer kiraz muchan, even that, it's a little unclear what it means, again, depending on whether you hold by Beit Shammai or not. Amar Rav Yehuda amar Rav. He comes now to narrow the case of the Mishnah where it said you can use the ashes from a kira, from an oven. He says that's only if it was lit from before Yom Tov. Why? Aval husak b'Yom Tov asul, because it's what we call nolad. It wasn't in existence. You can't say I plan to use this it wasn't even existing, the ashes. It was wood, it wasn't ashes at all. But they say one exception, he says, depends what stage you're talking about. If you use them to cook on Yom Tov and then they cool down, now these ashes are something that didn't exist before Yom Tov and they're useless to you right now. But if they're still hot, that you could still roast an egg on it, which means not terribly hot, but somewhat hot, because it's easy to roast an egg with a small, amount of heat. If it still has some heat in it, then it's going to be permitted, because even though they weren't in existence from yesterday, you were allowed to make the fire today, and it's still useful. Since it still has a use, it doesn't yet go into the category of becoming muktzah. It's actually interesting because it's kind of a nolad issue, but yet it is nolad. It was created today, but since we could still use it for Yom Tov purposes, therefore we're going to allow it also if you needed to cover the blood. Okay, Tanya Namihachi. There's a Beitzah to support this understanding of Rav Yehuda in the name of Rav. And they're going to basically say the exact same thing that Rav Yehuda said. When they said that it's muchan, you can use it. Lo amru ela shusak me'erev Yom Tov, only if you lit it from erev Yom Tov. But aval usak be'Yom Tov, if you made the fire on Yom Tov, asur, it's forbidden, unless imra oilet slopa beitzah mutar. But if you could roast an egg on it, then it's going to be allowed. Hichnis afar leginato lechurbato mutar lechasop. Beitzah continues and says, if you brought dirt in, earth, into your gina, into your garden, or your house, your abandoned or fallen apart house, mutar lachasopo, you can use it to cover the blood. And what's the issue here? The issue is that you collected dirt, so you are planning to use it. Now, once you use it and you put it, what are you really going to do? All the ground, the floors there were made of dirt. So you're eventually going to put it on the floor. Once you put it on the floor, it's muktzah, because it's really just not usable. It's really just to cover the floor. But since you haven't yet put it on the floor of your garden or in your house, this abandoned house, since you haven't yet done anything with it, therefore you're allowed to use it, because you haven't nullified it really and made it insignificant. Right now it's still significant because you plan to use it. Once you put it down there, then it's useless. Ba'amar Rav Yehuda. Furthermore, Rav Yehuda adds, if you bring in a big box full of dirt, you can use it for anything you want, meaning it's not muktzah. But Darish Marzutra, Mishmeda Marzutra Rabbah, he taught in the name of the elder Marzutra, it's only if you put it in a particular place in the house. If you just stuck it on the floor, then we're assuming it's almost like it's kind of on the floor already. But if you put it in a corner, a special place, it shows that you plan to use it for something, and therefore it's not muktzah. But now we're going to bring a big question on Rav Yehuda, who basically said you can bring a big thing of dirt and use it for anything use it for your purposes, also to cover the blood. So Meitive, they now say, wait, but we have a contradiction from the following source. Koi ein shochatino to b'yom tov. Koi is a type of animal. There are those who try to say, try to identify what kind of animal it is, but it seems to be a kind of animal that what the Gemara always likes to bring up this case of a koi, it's Safek behema, safek chaya. We don't know if it's a domesticated animal or a non-domesticated animal. What's the relevance? If it's a domesticated animal, you're not actually obligated to cover the blood. If it's an undomesticated animal, you have to cover the blood. So, koi ein shochatino to b'yom tov. You can't slaughter it on Yom Tov, because what's the issue? Well, you don't know if you have to cover the blood or not. So we don't allow you to cover the blood because of a suffix. In other words, it's only maybe you need to cover the blood. So we're not going to allow you to do that. So now we're going to say the following. And then it says, V'im shachato, and if you, and it's number one, don't slaughter it, because then you're going to have to cover the blood out of suffix, but we're not going to allow you to cover the blood, so you're going to be stuck. And im shachato, if you actually already slaughtered it, remember, Beit Hillel said if you already slaughter it, you can cover it. They say here, ein mechasin et amo, you can't cover it. So now, why is this a question of Rav Yehuda, who said you could bring a big box into your house of dirt and you can use it for anything you want? So the Gemara says, what's the main problem with covering the blood? The dirt is muktzah. We don't want to allow it. So, when we have no choice, so we'll allow it, but we don't really want to allow it. So in Ita, if really you could use this big pile of dirt to cover the blood that you designated already from before Shabbos or Yantif, why don't we cover it like Rav Yehuda suggests? Let's take something where you had dirt that you designated already for a purpose. You don't have to dig it. It's already in a box. So you don't have all those problems. And you now, it's not muktzah because you designated it already for any kind of use you want. So now we have this case where we're not sure if we have to cover the blood. Let's just cover the blood. So we're now going to have 4 different answers. Okay, it's going to take us a little while to get to all of them. It's going to cover most of the daf. So they now say, that's a silly question. Why are you asking Rav Yehuda? Really, what did we already learn? You should be able to cover it with the ashes of the fire. We already said the Efer Kira Muchan. You don't need to ask him Rav Yehuda. You could already ask it on the Mishnah itself. Efer Kira is Muchan, use that. Or B'deker Na'utz, or if you already dug your spear into the ground, your shovel, you should then be able to just pick it up, like we said. So there's other options also. So it doesn't make any sense. It's not really a question on only Rav Yehuda. So therefore they say, why didn't they ask on the Mishnah or ask on this case about the right? Both cases that came from the Mishnah, the Deker Na'utz or the Efer Kira, because it must be you don't have those available. Likewise, you could say this isn't a question of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said if you had a box where you put dirt in it, you'd be able to use it. You must just not have any dirt that you set aside. And that's why. So this isn't really a good question on Rabbi Yehuda. But the Gemara says no, but ihachi, if that's what you're saying. So the first answer is you just don't have it. And that's why it's not really a question on Rabbi Yehuda. What's the problem? If you don't have dirt, then why is the case specifically my area safek, a koi case? Even a regular case would be a problem because you never designated any dirt. What dirt are you supposed to use? So the Gemara says, lo mebaya kama. It's a structure of a lo mebaya, meaning you didn't even need to say that case. It was obvious. So how does it work? Lo mebaya vadai de lo lishcho. For sure you can't slaughter an animal that definitely needs to cover the blood because you don't have anything to cover it with. Aval safek. But this is only a safek whether it needs covering the blood or not. So maybe you would say, we have 2 things pulling at us. Maybe because of Simchat Yom Tov, we want to say it's so important to have this enjoy and eat meat on the holiday that will allow you to slaughter an animal, even though you don't have the ability to cover the blood, because we're not even sure you need to cover the blood. So we'll say, listen, because of Simchat Yom Tov, slaughter the animal, don't cover the blood, and that's fine. Kamash Malan, therefore it comes to teach you, no way, no can do. You cannot slaughter this animal, even though it's only a safek, because there's still a doubt that you might have to cover the blood, and we're not going to allow you to do it. But there's another problem with that answer. We're basically saying, remember, it's a case where you don't have anything to cover the blood with. So they say, but they say, if you already slaughtered it, don't cover the blood. What does that seem to imply? Don't cover it with what? If you don't have anything to cover it with, of course you can't cover the dirt. You can't cover the blood. So michlal b'di'it laskin, and it must be that you actually have dirt, soil available, and therefore it must be you do have, and it's not a case where you don't have, and that doesn't resolve our question. So back to square one. Ela Amar Rabba. Rabba gives a different explanation. Now again, what's our problem? It says you can't slaughter a koi. Why not? Rav Yehuda said you could have a pile of dirt set aside already, and you can use that, and it shouldn't be a problem. It resolves your muktzah problem. You're not digging from the ground. It seems to resolve all your problems. So, Ela Amar Rabba, Efer Kira Muchan Levadai ve'eno Muchan L'Safek. Says the ashes of your fire, or let's say this box that Rav Yehuda has, they said this box you set aside is muchan, is prepared for something that's definitive, that's definitely you're going to need, but not something that's safek. Maybe you need it, maybe you don't. We don't allow you. In other words, we only allow you, this whole thing the Mishnah said about Efer Kira Muchan, and then we said, well, you have to, also if you have a Malokupa Vafal, which Rav Yehuda said, it's only prepared and ready for things that definitely you need them, but not for things that you don't necessarily need. L'safek. So now why? Why don't we allow, if you already have resolved the muktzah issue, so l'safek my time alone, what's the problem? Well, teka'aviguma, maybe it's because you're making a hole, because even if it's in a box, still you're like kind of digging a hole in the box. Well, they say, and right? Or if you take the ashes from your oven, also you're kind of digging a hole there. Well, if you say that's the issue, it shouldn't be a problem just for koi, which is a doubtful situation. Should be a problem even if it's definitively you need to cover the blood. Still, you can't dig a hole. Elas kiderabi Abba, hachanami kiderabi Abba. They say no, it's not a problem of the hole, because you could say like Rabbi Abba, we already saw earlier in the daf, that digging a hole is not a problem either, because the ground is so soft it's going to fall apart in a minute anyway. The hole is going to fill right in, or it's malacha she'eina tzricha legufa. You don't need it for the same reason the malacha was done there, because you don't need the hole, you only need the dirt, or because it's mekalkel, it's destructive act, right? Some combination of those two. Ella, so we're back to square one. Ella suffix, we're still trying to explain Rabbah, though we're not back at square one, mamash. We're back at this explanation of Rabbah that Efer Kira is muchan levadai, but not for a suffix situation, like a koi. So Ella suffix my time. Let's try our next option. Dilma avid katisha. Maybe you're crumbling up big pieces, and it's a tolada of tochen, of grinding. Vadai nami nixor mishum katisha, but again, the same thing. Also, if you definitely have to cover the blood, you're still doing a malacha. It's forbidden. So vadai ki avi katisha, no, they say when it's definite and you have to cover the blood, ate ase, we have a mitzvah aseh. Now we only, in a koi case, you have a suffix mitzvah aseh. But when you have a definite mitzvah aseh to do of covering the blood, ate ase v'dachet lo taseh. It can override the lo taseh of don't do any malacha, right? Don't do work on the holiday. This can override it. To which they say no. It's very specific. It only works when kigon in the following cases, like milah b'tzarat. If you have a leprous mark, right where we have to do your brit milah, you're not allowed to cut off a leprous mark. If we cut it off while we're doing the brit milah, it's allowed. Why? Because you're doing the brit milah while you're fulfilling the mitzvah. You're doing something wrong, and therefore the mitzvah aseh overrides the lo taseh. Inami sadim b'tzitzit, or putting in the linen on the woolen bit, on the linen, if you strand your tzitzit with linen together mixed with wool, which is shatnez. Again, why do we allow it? To be idna de kama aker lav kamokim laase. What's the mitzvah lo taseh there? Don't wear shatnez clothing. But as you wear it, you're actually fulfilling the mitzvah of tzitzit. So both those cases, as you fulfill the mitzvah, that's when you're doing the lo taseh. That's when the aseh overrides. But in our case, first you're crumbling up the pieces into small pieces, then you're using it to cover the blood. That's not at the same time. It wouldn't be allowed. But the Gemara has an answer for that. Sorry. First we have to say, but in our case, but by us, when you're doing the lo taseh, the crumbling up, now we're still in the question, you're not actually fulfilling the mitzvah aseh of covering the blood. To which the Gemara says, halo kasha, that's not a question. To bahade de katish kamachase. As you're crumbling it, you're covering it. You basically crumble it right over the blood. And then you're doing it at the same time. So you could theoretically say that it comes and it overrides the mitzvah lo taseh, in which case that would explain why the vadai, Efer Kira, is prepared for a vadai, but not for a suffix. But right, you'd have to say Efer is ashes. It's not usually in clumps that you're going to crumble up, but we mean the similar case to the earth. Now they say, but in the end, we still have a question. Yom Tov Aseh V'lo Taseh. You're forgetting that there's a mitzvah Aseh. It says in Vayikra Kaf Gimel, Bayom HaRishon Tish Shabbaton. On the first day, it should be a day of rest for you, the first day of the holiday. That means it's a mitzvah aseh to rest on yantif, meaning not to do work. And it says, don't lo taseh kol melacha, don't do any work. So you can't have a mitzvah aseh of kisoy adam, of covering the blood, and have it override in aseh and a lo taseh. When you have a negative and a positive commandment, which you do by yantif, you can't say, oh, we're going to have a positive commandment override that. So that's what we're going to read right now. The ain aseh, so Yom Tov aseh v'lo tasehu. It's got both positive and negative commandment associated with not doing work. The ain aseh dochet lo taseh v'aseh. You can't have a mitzvah aseh, a positive commandment, come and override the negative and positive commandment. Therefore, third answer. So both first two answers got rejected. The second two answers are not going to be rejected, but we are going to bring two. When you have the ashes of a kira from the fire, your intent was, I'm going to use it for something definitive and not something that's maybe I'm going to need or maybe not. The koi is something maybe I'll need, maybe I won't. Therefore, you can't say that when I designated that, oh, maybe I'll use this on Yantif, I wasn't thinking about using it for some doubtful situation. And Azda Rava Latame, he goes according to his own approach because he says elsewhere, the Amarava, Hichnis Afar, if I brought dirt into my house, L'chasopot So'ah, to cover feces, excrement of a child. Okay, the issue is that maybe the child will make a mess on the floor and I'll have to cover it because I don't want it to be disgusting. So if I brought in dirt to cover the so'ah, the excrement, which I'm not sure I'm going to need or not, that's a suffix. What can I do with it? Mutar l'chasopo dam tzipor. Now, dam tzipor, the blood of a bird, is more likely that I'm going to want to slaughter a bird on Yantiv and eat it. So I can use it for something that's much more definite than if I dedicate it for a suffix purpose, I can use it for a definite purpose. But if I separate it for a doubtful situation, I can use it in a definitive situation. But dam tzipor, if I designated it specifically for the slaughter of a bird to cover the blood, so I can't use it for something that's a possibility, okay, but not definitive. Nahar B'lai Amre, the guy who came from Nahar B'lai, who Rashi says, it says in Sanhedrin, he's called Rami Bar Baribi. He says, he disagrees with Rava about this. Even if I brought in dirt to cover the blood of the bird, I'm actually allowed to use it to cover the excrement. Now, this is either because he thinks that excrement is more likely that I will need this. It's pretty definitive that it's going to happen. That's the more likely explanation. Or possibly you could say he doesn't really care. He doesn't have this idea that, oh, I had it in my mind only for something definitive and not something that might possibly happen. So that's another possibility. Amrei b'ma'arava, in Eretz Yisrael, they said, Pligi bar Rabbi Yossi bar Chama v'Rabbi Zera. Two rabbis there had a debate about it. V'amrei lan, some people say, Rabbi Bered Rabbi Yossi bar Chama, who's the same Rabbi we saw before, it disagrees with Rabbi Zera about it. Okay, so either way, the ones from Israel were saying Rabbi Zera disagrees with somebody about this. Chad amal koi hareu kitzoah, v'chad amar koi eino kitzoah. One says koi is a doubtful situation, just like the excrement of the child that we know, it's a doubtful situation, just like the excrement. We have no idea if it's going to happen. And therefore, again, you designate blood for the bird, you can't use it to cover the tzo'ah, and you also can't use it for the koi. Like the efer kira can't be used for the koi. V'chanamar koi eno kitzo'ah. And the other one says, no, koi is different from the tzo'ah because the tzo'ah is more definitive, whereas the koi is more of a doubt. To stayim, now they say, let's conclude, if you go with the second reading, that it was Rava and Rabbi Zera, that Rava is the one who says, Hu da'amar koi hareu kitzoah, exactly for what we saw before. Da'amar Rava, yichnis afar l'chasopot tzoah, mutar l'chasopot dam tzipor asor l'chasopot tzoah. Because he distinguished between the case of bringing the blood for the bird versus bringing the blood for the excrement. If it was for the blood of the animal to cover the blood of the bird, then you can't use it for the tzo'ah because the tzo'ah is a less likely situation to occur, and that would make it similar to koi and therefore to stayim. That was just an aside to say that this machloket matches up, and Rava must be the one who holds that because when it was passed down, people didn't know who said what. Next, fourth answer. So again, let's just review. First, our question from the beginning was, Rabbi Yehuda said you could bring in a box full of dirt and use it, to which the Gemara said, but koi you can't slaughter, why not? Why not use dirt from this box? To which the Gemara said, it seems clear, so the Gemara answered, the first answer was, it must be you don't have dirt. But the Gemara rejected that and said, no, it seems pretty clear. You did have a possibility of having dirt, so you can't say that, and that's not a good answer then. Second answer was Rabba said, Efer kiraz muchan levadai but not lesafek. It's ready for something that's definitive, but you can't use it for something that's a doubtful situation. And then they said, well, what's the problem? Right? And in the end, they said that you can't, it's because, right, the asay is doche lo taseh, but you can't say that in the end because there's an asay that's doche, an asay and a lo taseh. So you still have these halachic problems, so it doesn't really make sense. If it's going to be a problem, it should be a problem even in a vadai case. The distinction between vadai and safek don't make any sense here. To which we had a third answer that basically we're talking about that you had Afer, that you, by the way, I forgot to mention this. When he said, Afer kirad da'atol levadai ve'ein da'atol l'safek, we're assuming this is a case where you didn't specify what you wanted to use the ashes for. And then the question is, if you didn't specify, then we could have to assume you only meant to use it for definitive purposes and not for undefinitive purposes. And that matches what Rava said elsewhere about if you brought in dirt to cover the blood of a bird, you can't use it to cover a child's excrement. Now we're going to have a fourth answer. Rami Bered Rav Yiva Amar. Koi hanutama de lo machnisina. Zera mishum atarat chalbo. Before you read this, we have to explain. You have to understand another halacha. We said that covering the blood was only for an undomesticated animal, a chaya, and not for a behemah, for a domesticated animal. There's a different halacha, and for birds as well. Right? We said undomesticated and birds, you have to cover the blood. When it comes to the forbidden chelev, which is you're not allowed to eat fats from the animal, that applies to domesticated animals, behemot, and not to chayot. Why is that? Because when you burn the fats on the altar, which altar you only burn domesticated animals, you never bring undomesticated animals like a donkey or a deer, you never bring those on the altar. So therefore, they instituted the chelev, this forbidden is parallel to what goes and gets burnt to God in the sacrifice, also forbidden to us. So we also can't eat it in regular meat. And therefore, it's only by behemot. So what's the problem here? If we allow you on Yantif to cover the blood, even though there's potential halachic problems here, you'll think that the koi is an animal. You'll think that it's a chaya. If you think, because otherwise, why would we allow you to cover the blood? If you think it's a chaya, you're going to end up eating the chelev because you'll think it's a chaya and the chelev's not forbidden. So he says the reason why we don't cover it is we're worried you're going to matir, you're going to permit. You'll think that the chelev is permitted. And it's not, because maybe it's an animal. We don't know. Maybe it's a domesticated animal. So the Gemara says, well, then you should never cover the blood, right? In other words, covering the blood proves it's a chaya. And then you're going to think that the chelev, the forbidden fats, are actually permitted. So even on a regular day, you shouldn't. They say, no, b'chol, if somebody sees, right, what are they going to think? Someone's going to see you doing it, and they're going to think, oh, koi must be a chaya, an undomesticated animal, because you're covering the blood. No. They'll see you doing it. You'll say you must be cleaning your floor, right? They would scatter dirt to clean the floor, the dust off the floor. Seems like a weird way to clean, but that's how they would clean. So now they say, what if you did it in the garbage dump, where nobody thinks you're cleaning the garbage dump? Or what if you go to a rabbi and ask him, what am I supposed to do? What's he supposed to say? Don't do it because what people might think, right? That seems weird. So, there's a difference between chol and yom tov. On chol, if you go to ask a rabbi, he'll say, listen, there's a doubt about it. Go do it anyway. It's not the biggest deal. But b'yom tov, but if it's yantif, no one's going to tell you go get dirt and cover around, dig for dirt, cover the blood, all that, when we're not even sure you need to, right? And then everyone's going to think, if they see you doing it on yantif, they're going to say, oh, it must be that it's an undomesticated animal, which means everyone will then think, since they permitted you to do this on yantif, it must be it's an undomesticated animal, in which case they're going to let themselves eat the chelev and not think that it's forbidden. There's your fourth answer. Okay, so answer number 4 was it's gzera because people might confuse it and think that you can eat the chelev, and then we distinguished why you wouldn't think that on a regular day, only on yantif. We're going to finish up with Tani Rabbi Chia. He brings a braita. We'll give you another suffix case, not just a koi, which is maybe an animal, maybe domesticated, maybe undomesticated. But if you slaughtered an animal and an undomesticated and domesticated and a bird, and the bloods mixed up together, are you allowed to cover all those bloods? So asur l'chasato b'yom tov. It's also a doubt case. It's just a bit of a different doubt, because in the doubt you have mixed up actual things that do need cover. So that's what Rabbi Yossi is going to say. I'm Rabbi Yossi bar Yasinia, strange name. It's only if you can't do it with one shovelful. But if you could cover the whole thing with one shovelful, then it's allowed, because then you're allowed to cover the blood of the chaya and the oaf. And since you can cover the whole thing with one shovel, we assume you're doing it to cover the undomesticated animal or the bird, and the bird, and not for the domesticated animal. So the Gemara says, Pshita, isn't that pretty obvious? So they say, well, we wanted to tell you this because you might have thought, don't do one, because if you do one, we allow you to do one, you might actually come to do two. Therefore, comes teach you, no, actually you can. Last line for today, Amaraba. If you slaughtered a bird on Erev Yantif, you had to have done the blood yesterday, sprinkled the dirt over the blood. We do not allow you on Yantif to do something that you could have done yesterday. So then in that case, you're not permitted to cover the blood. With that, we'll finish today, and we'll pick up after Rosh Hashanah. Shana Tova to all of you. Tiva v'chatima tova.